Welcome to the Rise to Change podcast. I'm your host, Daniele Ascani.
And I'm your host, Marcela Torres-Noguera. We're mental health professionals with a private practice in New York City.
And guess what? We're not only partners in business, but also in life.
This podcast explores the everyday struggles of working professionals that we've seen throughout our combined 25 years of practice, as well as in our personal lives.
Our motto is to normalize, not minimize. And in today's episode, we are talking about education. Matter of fact, higher education. We know that some people in our audience are pursuing a degree or are thinking about pursuing one, but don't know really where to start. If you're considering pursuing a degree in the arts, then you may be wondering, how do I balance my full-time job, part-time job, family, friends, life, and all of that? So today, we want to focus a little bit on that. And for that purpose, we have Mr. Alex Fischer here, Director of Student Care and Support at Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Art. Okay, right? Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Cooper Union, a couple of things to say. And you may also not be familiar because you're not from the city. So Cooper Union is one of the oldest and actually most distinguished institutions in higher education. The college was founded in 1859 by, if I remember correctly, inventor, industrialist, philanthropist Peter Cooper. And nowadays, and even back then, it offers world-class education in arts. I remember architecture and engineering, correct?
Yep, correct.
Alex, welcome here. Hopefully I said everything right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do at Cooper?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Alex. I am originally from Missouri. I went to school in Kansas and got both my bachelor's and my master's in education there. Ultimately wanted to be a teacher, but I really found my passion in higher education and working primarily with first-year students, helping them transition to college, giving them new experiences, and really sort of trying to find their path in life, right? I've been in New York now for over 10 years and at Cooper only for about 9 months. So as the Director of Student Care and Support, my job is to work very closely with our student care team, also with the rest of the school, so administration, faculty, and staff, to really help and support our students in overall wellness, mental health, and making sure that they have the resources that we have that are making them available to them at all hours of the day and night to help and support them with their education.
Outstanding.
Well, our motto, as we said initially, is kind of like to normalize, not minimize. Right. So part of what we would love to hear is what you're seeing some of the students are struggling with, right? Like I know that some students are coming from other cities, even from other countries sometimes. Right. And they're new to the city and they're new to the program. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing, like what kinds of struggles are they going through?
Yeah.
Mental health wise and, other things, right? Kind of like settling in the city. What are some of the things that you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So our students, they come right to Cooper. It's a very small class that we bring in each year. Okay. It's a very rigorous education. And so I think, students think that maybe they aren't cut out for this education. They take a couple of weeks of class and say it was the wrong decision. They were picked for a reason to be at Cooper, a very selective process, and they are trying to, forge their way at Cooper and in the world. And so ultimately, I think there's a lot of things that are happening in the world, right? World affairs, we're coming out of 2 years of the pandemic. Students are struggling with, did I pick the right major? Am I going to, find a job when I graduate? Finances is huge right now. Can I afford to live in New York City? Can I afford to eat in New York City? I'm coming to an amazing city. Do I even have the time and money to do what the city offers? Sure. And so I think students are really, struggling with those aspects of life and trying to figure out how that works here at Cooper as well as in New York City. And ultimately just, again, figuring out life as well. So
I think you provided already an answer, but maybe if you can if you can tell us more, how did the pandemic have an impact on the students? What do you see in what you do?
Yeah, so the work that we're doing every day, right? The students we're told by, high school administrators, teachers, family, Hollywood, the media, what their high school experience was going to look like their senior year. They were told what their college search process was going to look like. And ultimately, some of those things didn't happen in the way that they thought they would, right? Some of our students are really struggling with having to have celebrated large life moments via Zoom, virtually, away from family and friends. I think our students are still sort of struggling coming out of the pandemic, of getting back to this sort of new normal of being in class with other folks, being around other people, large gatherings, and trying to figure out how to socialize as well.
Absolutely.
I think socialization is maybe one of the biggest struggles right now.
Yes.
With the students. And I think the other piece of this, right, is figuring out how to, again, live in this new normal in a large city that was sort of, this in the start of the pandemic and that sort of thing. The hope, though, is that the work that we're doing every single day, the resources that we're bringing to those students, we're offering the programming opportunities to really engage the community. So even just yesterday, we had a breakfast event where our president provides breakfast to all of the students, staff, and faculty. And the hope is that they come together, they get free breakfast, but also they have the opportunity to, mingle with one another, to talk with folks, and to really sort of like engage. And the hope is that we're building these sorts of programs and providing these sorts of resources to our students so that they feel like they're part of the community, and we're helping them sort of like bring them out of the pandemic as well, if that makes sense.
Next time, let us know. So we love to have a free breakfast
every Thursday.
As parents with raising a child, we wouldn't mind. Go ahead.
Well, something that you mentioned that we have dealt with a lot in our practice. And we mentioned that earlier. I mean, you yourself said, you came from another state, and we know that that's happening a lot. So tell us a little bit about that transition into New York City, navigating the city. I mean, we know that right now, living in the city is not cheap. So it's kind of like, how do students figure it out? Or
is it a cultural shock? Or was it a cultural shock for you? Because it was for us.
I can say for me, it absolutely was. Right?
Yes.
Definitely a cultural shock, I think, for myself and many, right? New York City is one of the most amazing cities in the world. And obviously, living here, I have tons of friends and family that always want to visit. And I'm sure other folks have the same experience, right?
Yeah. Tell them that you're busy.
Right, exactly. Right. But with over,
you're in a studio apartment, like you can fit the whole family.
Can't fit them, right? You have to stay in a hotel, and I'm not paying for it. So,
yes.
But I think, New York can also be one of the loneliest places in the world. Absolutely. With, over 8 million people living here. It's a much different experience. And when you're coming here for maybe the first time, so knowing some of our students, they actually have never visited New York before coming here to go to Cooper. And so I think part of that is really, again, giving them opportunities, resources, programming opportunities to get them connected to resident assistants, college orientation guides, their advisors, TAs, that sort of thing, to really connect them to the Cooper community, but also giving them opportunities to experience this amazing city, right? So for our first year students, we had 40 students show up just to learn how to navigate the subway.
Wow.
And so I think that's, a huge moment, right? Is that students really do want to be able to go out into their city that is now home for at least the next 4 years, to be able to experience the city. And so providing them with just programs, again, to connect them to that city, or bringing folks in, right? Bringing different guest speakers into the campus to really open up the conversation and the discussion around different topics that maybe they weren't interested in before, but now they're away from family and friends, and they're sort of figuring out their new life, right? And maybe becoming more and more interested in, different topics.
I'm so glad that you brought up the whole thing with navigating the subway, because that's what we see as generally as being a major limitation for people to think about the logistics and be so scared about how to do something that, as New Yorkers, we do every day, right?
Absolutely.
But there's also folks who may be a little bit older and thinking about going back to school, and then they're like, well, how do I get from point A to point B? Or maybe they've never done it before. Maybe they just Marcela and I, we took, completed a part of our education in another country where the layout is totally different in another city. So you come here all right, what do you do? I mean, the subway map looks a little bit intimidating. It can be. If you don't mind, I know you spoke a little bit about the resources, but What do you think students can do to really relax, unwind, take care of their self-care? Because that's what we're seeing is that with the reopening of society, people are focusing on, all right, I feel that I'm missing out. I feel that I'm behind, which is not necessarily correct.
Right.
Because people always forget that there was a pause of 2 years.
Right, exactly.
A little, tiny little pause that affected the entire universe as we know it. But what can students do to really, go through their courses and maybe relax and practice self-care?
Yeah, so I think, what we're trying to do with the student care team at Cooper and student affairs in general is really integrate wellness into every aspect of their life, right? Whether it be from academics, whether it be to programming outside. So whether that's catching up with friends, grabbing a meal, if we can provide that meal, maybe they get a free meal out of it, right? But really just trying to create this community amongst their classmates, their peers, and that, they're able to build that community together. But I think to relax, right? Like there's always something going on in the city and you feel like you have to be on the go 24/7 because you're missing something or you're behind, like you said, right? And you're not able to then, be at the same level as other folks. And so you're really trying to like forge your way in that. I think the hope is that we're providing those resources to students that they can take care of themselves, but also find the balance of being able to go to school, go to class, but also exploring their city. So whether it's enjoying the great parks here, right, going to the waterfront, just being able to, again, go out to dinner with friends or family, catch a movie, a play, whatever that might be.
And a lot of restaurants are reopening, which is
exactly
thing.
Right,
so
right. And outdoor dining might be here to stay. And I think people love that.
Make it very European-like, right? Cafe, sounds like
absolutely.
You're somewhere in Rome or Paris, something like that.
Right.
But the other wonderful thing about this city, I mean, I know many other cities have that too, but like particularly about New York, I have always been amazed as an immigrant, sort of like how many things you can do also for free, right? Like, as you said, like different things that are going on at parks or just like, free concerts, free, readings, like there are all sorts of things. And sometimes students and, people in general, including, myself, like that's something that I really try to pay attention to, but it's like, it's so much that, it's good to have a place where, maybe there are some ideas, right? And kind of like this week, this is kind of like what's happening. And that's part of what, in a way, inspired our podcast because we wanted, people listening and our audience to have more access and ideas about what else can we do to promote, kind of like to feel better and to balance things better with school, with work, right? With life.
With life. And one of the things that I think it has to do with, I mean, if you, I don't know, without disclosing, personal information, but what does success look like for the students that you see, hey, you know what, they arrive, they get to Cooper, and you see that they're able to hit the ground running, and that they thrive. And, is there something that they're doing a little bit different? And if so, what can we tell the other, the rest of the group so that, they also maybe, get better and feel better?
Right, absolutely. I think our students, and for me, right, I think for our students and for our staff, success is integrating them into our community, really providing them with this, very rigorous education that is going to hopefully help them and set them up for success in the professional world, right? Giving them those opportunities to learn, grow, experience new things, maybe really question some things that they're learning and become a better citizen in their own society, whether it's on campus or outside of campus. And so figuring out how to help them with that. But I think, again, helping them also find those resources, coming to us and feeling comfortable disclosing certain information and really talking to us about the struggles that they're going through. And then hopefully seeing them graduate in 4 or 5 years, right? And move on, whether that's from Cooper or whether that's from another institution, but seeing them, ultimately walk across the stage, get their diploma, and then move on and having secured a job, hopefully. Maybe it's not the job they wanted, but hopefully it's something that is in their field. It's helping them to move forward to that ultimate end goal of whatever they want to do.
Sure.
I mean, something that I remember reading about is that Cooper offers also like access to an app that students can. Tell us a little bit about the app, because I think that's so great. Like that's something that I'm like, wow, like, I wish I had that when I was a student.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Same, right? Same. Literally, students can access Timely Care is a 24/7, 365 app or web-based platform. Students can go on, they can speak to either a nurse practitioner or a doctor. It is telehealth and also emotional health. So students can schedule appointments with a mental health provider, or they can do on-the-go or on-demand counseling. Usually the wait is less than 5 minutes. It's usually much quicker than that, but for any appointment, it's usually about 5 minutes or so.
Wow.
And they're connected to an individual, right? They never have to leave their room. They never have to leave their apartment. They never have to leave their bed. So what we've talked about with students and saying that they're sick, they can't come to class, right? But they couldn't go to the doctor to get a doctor's note. They literally could have talked to somebody on this app, right? Had a telehealth appointment, got a doctor's note, let us know, hey, I'm sick, I can't come to class today. And ultimately it would have been taken care of, right? And so the hope is that students are accessing this platform. It's free of charge to all students
amazing.
at Cooper.
Wow.
It's currently US based, but the hope is that students are able to access it anywhere in the country, right? And use that platform to really help them with their emotional wellness, with their physical wellness, and hopefully move forward and be well at Cooper, right? So
one of the things that I like to I think it's a pandemic within the pandemic that we see a lot with different clients is the addiction to social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how it's not just students, it's not just adults, that they spend a lot of time on TikToks, on Instagram, on Facebook.
Right.
And I've worked with different clients who tell me it's hard to stop.
Yeah.
How do I stop? And then, we work in our practice to help them with that. But is there something there that maybe you're seeing as a pattern? I'm not saying that this is something that I think is still somewhat new, because people are realizing now that, hey, TikTok is great. No disrespect. I don't mean to speak negatively about the platform, but what it's a fact. People are spending a lot of time on it, and in such for a student who's involved, who's taking, let's say, 12 credits or more in such a rigorous program, then they get to the end of the week and they're like, oh my gosh, I just spent 2 hours or more, which is generally more than 2 hours.
Right.
So just out of curiosity, if that's something that you see, that the people, that students complain about.
Yeah, so guilty. I've definitely spent more than 2 hours scrolling on TikTok. Right?
Yes.
I actually have a friend that works there, and we talk about this fairly often, about the algorithm and how it works. But I think our students do struggle with connecting on social media and also spending too much time on social media. I think the big piece is that students also use social media to see what others are doing.
Yes.
And then they feel like they're missing out, right? FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Exactly.
Literally talking to a friend, and they were upset that they weren't in whatever country that other friends were, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that was because they were seeing it on social media. So I do think it does have a huge impact, whether it's you're missing out on something, you see things that maybe are hurtful and harmful to your emotional or mental health, or physical health, those sorts of things. But I also think students in some ways are struggling too, because they do get wrapped up in that cycle of endless scrolling, and they've just spent 2 or 3 hours on that when they should have been reading, the assignment for tomorrow, or completing that paper, or doing the take-home exam, that sort of thing. So I do think that students are still struggling with that. And I'm not sure that there's any good way to fix that right now, because I do think that's the whole point of those platforms, right, is to really suck people in and keep them going. And the hope is that people are using it, though, in positive ways, whether that's finding reinforcement from, accounts that are really giving positive messages, or study tips, or that sort of thing. So.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, for example, we have come across is the following scenario: a student who, and this is actually my scenario, I remember, where I was working somewhat of a crazy part time. It was 30 hours a week, and I was studying for my BA. And I get to the end of it, and I'm like, boy, like, what do I do? Do I continue with my master's, or do I just take a year off, sabbatical, and go somewhere and have, and just relax?
Right.
Is this something that you see at Cooper? And if so, what do you say, or what do you do?
Yeah, definitely. I think that students are constantly thinking about whether they continue their education or not, right? It's the return on investment. So do I spend this amount of money to get this degree, and is it going to push me forward in the professional world to have a better paying job or a higher, level position starting out, that sort of thing. So I definitely think students are struggling with that. And I think that part of that is there's a lot of pressure from parents, right, to get this education, to get this degree, to get this good paying job. I think students are also putting this pressure on themselves. And so I know our folks in career services are constantly working with students to talk to them about what does that education look like? Do they continue it? Trying to find, the best possible job for them in their field. But I do think that students are struggling with making that decision. Do I continue my education, or do I just immediately move into the work field? And speaking from the experience of myself and like you, right? I thought if I didn't do my master's, I probably would never go back and actually do it. Yeah. So I just continued straight from undergrad to my master's program to just be done with it and to have it. I'm so glad that I did do it, because I've also worked with friends and seen friends do this where they wait 10 years to go back and get that degree. And then they have a full-time life, right? They have a family, they have a job, and they're trying to balance all of those things with their education. So I think it's trying to give students those resources and connect them with the right people to make those decisions. And it is a very personal decision too.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I like the thought process. In my case, I just tossed a coin. I'm like, okay, my parents were happy though. Yeah. My parents were happy.
So I know you told us about the app, and I really love the idea of like that being available to students. Can you tell us about other resources? Any other resources that are available for students that we should know about?
Yeah.
Just the audience.
Resources in your team, like
yes, in your team.
Give us a sense of the magnitude, because it may not be. You may not necessarily have 25,000 students, right? But we would like for people to know, for prospect students to know, hey, what people want to be part of something.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the student affairs team at Cooper Union is small but mighty. So we're a team of about 12 people serving roughly about 1,000 students on campus each and every day, whether it's career services, student involvement, so student clubs and organizations, residential life, and the student care team. We are all working very, very, tightly knit together to hopefully provide resources and support for our students in different ways, whether it's connecting them to career fairs and employers, whether it's connecting them to, mental health and emotional health based wellness programs or resources, to, again, student clubs and organizations. How do they integrate themselves into the community? How do they build that community? How do they continue to help Cooper build the community and ultimately leave Cooper a better place than when they started, right, and they found it? So specifically from student care, we have, again, the app Timely Care that we work with very closely, but a lot of it being too that we have our student care coordinators that meet with students on a pretty regular basis on campus that I work with. We also have a team of about 30 or so providers that we contract with in the neighborhood in the New York City area that we really try to connect students to for emotional and mental health care. And ultimately, those providers are working with those students, whether it be that Cooper's providing that service to them, or they're working to continue long-term care with those providers. So a lot of it is really using our team wisely, but again, being able to connect every single student. And a lot of it being too that students have faculty, staff, and grad assistants or teaching assistants, advisors, resident assistants that they can work with as well. And being a very small community, we are very connected with each and every student. And the hope is that we know each and every student as an individual rather than as a number, right? And so we have those faculty members reaching out because they're concerned about a student, or even myself, knowing individuals and being able to make those connections from first year all the way through, their senior year, and really helping them, progress from that first year through their senior year or beyond even.
Awesome. I can see the passion there, and I'm sure that that your students see it as well. Alex, thank you. This has been great. I feel that I mean. I have to say, I was only good at building Legos.
Same, yes.
So that wouldn't do it. That's why I became a therapist. But it's nice to know that there's a place within the city where students can get their rigorous education, but at the same time get the support that they need, especially at the end of a pandemic. At least
right.
what it looks like on this side of the ocean. So I think it's great. Phenomenal.
Yeah. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you, for allowing me to talk about Cooper and the work that we're doing every single day. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
This has been another episode of the Rise to Change podcast.
If you'd like to learn more, you can visit our website or find us on social media, which are linked in the description below, along with any resources we mentioned in this episode.
Thank you for listening, and remember to always be kind to yourself.